Hey there, this is Caitlin. I'm the founder of the Legacy Brand Leader Curriculum, and I am also the creator of these two podcasts, Stories That Matter, and the one you're listening to today, Fails and Flops. So, in my newest podcast, Fails and Flops, listen to this podcast and learn the lessons of those who have been on a road ahead of you, making mistakes that you don't have to make yourself to learn the same lesson. So today I am going to share about experience I had in 2021. And if you don't know about my background, I have been a consultant since 2014. I started off as what I call a copywriting consultant, where I would help small business owners, speakers, and public figures reposition their brand through their website content, through articles, and provides strategy for all of their content. Okay. Now I am currently creating the Legacy Brand Leader Curriculum, which you can find at storyspeak.net. And this helps develop executive leadership skills as well as standard operating procedures for any type of business. So I normally work with people who are solopreneurs, who have an idea and maybe they have started kind of working in their business as a hobby, but have not quite jumped in to create the procedures to make it really something that can operate without them. And recently I made the shift to work in addition to that audience to CEOs of more established companies. And this would mean maybe they're expanding with a team, or they've already have a team and are missing certain procedures, missing certain workflows where things are just not jiving properly and they're not getting the results they want. And so I found with whatever audience I work with, the same type of problems can be solved with the same knowledge I offer in this Legacy Brand Leader Curriculum. But what I learned in this experience is that the different approach I have to take when working with CEOs of more established businesses versus solopreneurs who are just working by themselves. Okay, so I am calling this episode 4 Things I Wish I Knew Before Working with for a New Type of Client. And if you are retargeting your audience, or if you're adding like tiered services and you're starting to work with a type of audience that you don't normally work with, I think you'll really get nuggets from this episode. So let's get right into it, shall we? So story time. I met this client through a referral. And because it had been a referral from a client who I had trusted, we had a great relationship, I was immediately taken with this new type of client that I was about to work with. So when I was introduced to the company, I went through my standard procedures, which is, of course, let's get on a phone call. Let's go through what is called a legacy pledge map. I really want to know your vision. I really need to understand what you're trying to do and understand what your weaknesses are to see if I can come alongside you and if we are compatible. So can I give you what you need, essentially? Let's see. We hit it off really well. We had a really great conversation. It seemed like everything did align with what I offered and what the need was in the business. And 1 year later, we started working together. And in fact, this client, I was really impressed because they actually hired a team in order to support the work we were going to do together. And I thought that was great because I had told them it's so important to have a team. If we're going to prepare you for a team, like, you need to be ready to not do it by yourself, So that was just amazing for me. And so we continued business as usual, which meant signing contracts, making payment plans. He said the first payment coming through, all that jazz, and then immediately getting to work together. So here is my first thing that I wish I did differently. the contract process that I have used with solopreneurs, remember that's type of client one that I work with, right? I had used the same contract that I used with those clients. So here I am working with client type 2 for the first time. I was really excited. This had been my intention to work with more established business owners for about a year, and I was building my curriculum to really meet business owners in that realm who fit the criteria of established business owners. What that looks like to me is someone who might have a brick and mortar business or an online business and is looking to expand, who is looking to start a team or has a team, and who is really recognizing their need for enhanced structure in their business due to poor results showing up in the form of employee turnover rates, high employee turnover rates, poor sales, feeling stressed and overrun in their business, feeling burnt out. And so it was really exciting to work with this company because it was really me being able to work in my full capacity too and share so much knowledge that I really had to hold back from a lot of solopreneurs because they weren't ready to receive it yet. So the contract I used dealt with more of the behaviors, the mindset, the expectations in regards to what it would be like to work with me. It was compatible with the client and the work we were doing in that sense. But what I failed to confront head on was also the potential liabilities that come with working with more established business owners. When someone is more established, there's more things that can go wrong. There's more things that we need to be aware of, especially if you're growing a team or if you already have a team. And so it's my responsibility to make sure that I confront these potential liabilities and blind spots of CEOs head on right at the front. And I didn't do that. So what I have learned since is that I need to make a contract for CEOs of a certain caliber that, if you have X, Y, and Z in your business, I need to make sure that certain behaviors are not exhibited towards your customers or towards your employees, and really laying out the groundwork for the definition of a CEO, the job description of a CEO, and the standards of a CEO, not just for their business, but for if you're working alongside me, this is what is to be expected. If it doesn't go this way, then I will have to let you go. And so it's creating non-negotiables, deal breakers, and specifically saying what these things are, specifically laying out the expectations, making sure they're realistic on both of your parts. And that's another thing I have learned to put in the new contract is making sure that, is this person capable of giving what I need as someone who's going to take on their business, because when you work with higher caliber businesses, you're also taking on more potential liabilities if things go wrong, right? You're taking on so much of the business. And I know if you're a consultant, you can probably feel me, right? I remember there were so many months where I would lie awake at night worrying about the business. And I realized, wait, this should not be my problem. The CEO should be worrying just as much as I am, right? And working with me to find a solution. And so I had found that had I confronted these things head on in this contract, I would have seen right at the gate, is this person capable of, and do they intend on taking on the responsibility of a CEO? Had I taken the time to draft that contract with really explicit detail of the definitions of a CEO and, the things that I expect of the person we're working with, what we're creating together, and the mindset that must be there, the behaviors that are not acceptable and non-negotiables, deal breakers, I would have been able to qualify the CEO much earlier. And when someone squirms at something that's in a contract, that's a sign that, oh, okay, it's not a good fit. And so what happened in this instance is I had waited to see what boundaries to push back on. So because I was in a realm of the unknown in a way, because this was a new type of client I was working with, I did what I knew to do previously. And I just responded the same way I did with the other type of client I work with, right? The solopreneur. So I'm really happy to have learned that valuable lesson of making sure the contract is fit to qualify the CEO in regards to their desire of taking on responsibility and being aware of liabilities, being aware of their responsibilities as a business owner, and not just in speech, not just in knowledge, but in actually really becoming liable. That's the reality, that, hey, you're liable for XYZ now as a CEO. And so that's what I help people with too, right? Is realizing that our roles as business owners change drastically when we have people to take care of. And when we are serving the public directly, especially in a physical location. So really interesting to learn that. Okay, so let's go right to my second takeaway from working with this new type of client. And that is realizing the need to reassess my own boundaries based on not only the new type of client and their different role in the company that I had no experience with prior, but also based on my own role change that came with a new lifestyle I was living, which was off grid. So it was a really interesting time because right about the time I started working with this client, I was totally off the radar. I mean, I had to put my business down for about 6 months because I totally underestimated time and effort it would take to get internet working, to uh, get my life more settled when moving off grid. So I thought I was simply changing locations, to be honest. I didn't realize I expected that I could just pick up work whenever I wanted to on my laptop with my data and my phone. And it just didn't work that way. So my expectations did not match my current reality. And I'm not sure that I could have ever made my expectations match my current reality because I had never been in this situation before. So when we're in new situations, it's so important to reassess our boundaries and say, okay, what can I give to this client? Um, and don't just do business as normal. That was my mistake. I wanted to keep doing business as normal, and I also really missed working in my business. Remember, I had to put it down for about 6 months, and so I was so excited to just serve again, and it's really made me eager to say, like, okay, what can I do for you? I realized that I overstepped my boundaries a lot. And again, this goes back to the contract, if there's a better contract too, being really vulnerable and transparent about each other's situations and having that real meaty discussion about, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what you can expect from me, and we can adjust things as needed. But once you have these tough conversations, you're creating a real relationship. And that's truly important, no matter what type of client you have, to go deep, go fast and deep. I would say don't wait to have these conversations when things come up. Anticipate what could go wrong on both sides and bring it up, okay, in the contract. And so I know now that, yeah, I have to be more realistic. I need to reassess my boundaries, and I have. And that means performing very high level service, which I do in limited time. So it means not having as many meetings. It means having procedures in place to communicate and think and brainstorm without having to be on the phone. And this is super important because this will tie into my fourth takeaway. So let's get into my third takeaway. So before working with a new type of client, I wished I had asked these two questions. And they are, what have you tried before hiring me? And what do you believe your role is in your business's current issues? And this will expose some really deep stuff, right? I mean, if someone doesn't answer honestly, then that would have shown me, oh, we're not a good fit. I need you to be really vulnerable here. Can you take responsibility for things? And, tell me everything you've tried. And beyond just telling me what they was tried before hiring me, it would have been helpful if I had insisted on having evidence of things that were tried beforehand, things that went wrong, and just very transparent information that can't be debated, that can't be questioned, because it's not just verbal, it's on paper, it's historic, it's recorded. And that would have saved me a lot of headaches, a lot of regret, a lot of mismanagement of my time, because instead of trying to dig around for this information, or waiting for other people to bring it to me, I could have gotten right to the facts up front and then had adequate information to make the best decision, not only for the client, but for myself too. And so, the right questions are key when you start working with someone. And because this is a different client, again, a new type of individual that I hadn't worked with prior, I was asking different questions, right, that I thought were the right questions. And that was mostly relating to the business, to their vision. But my other type of client, of course, hasn't really started business yet. They've done it on their own. They're hobbyists starting out, and they're looking to leave their full-time jobs. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between that and someone doing this full-time. They've been in it for 6 years. They have a team. They're having issues with employees. And so obviously the answers are going to be so different, right, when you ask these questions. So those are 2 questions I highly recommend you asking any client is, what have you done before hiring me? What have you tried to do differently, and where's the evidence for that? And then, what is your role in the issues you want me to solve for your business? All right, so let's get straight to takeaway 4. And this one is really important. I really underestimated someone's capacity to undermine me. And what I mean is, let's say you send an email. Let's say you do things professionally to a T from the moment you start working with them to the moment you resign. I did that, right? I made sure I recorded everything. I had a resignation letter. I would communicate in Slack. I didn't want to communicate too much on the phone because it's so important to have data and records of information that you can point back to where someone misquotes you, or if someone has a misunderstanding, it's like, well, no, that's not what I said. Read this message here. Or that's not true. Read this message here. And it's not that people have an intent to be manipulative or deceitful. Often it's just misunderstanding. And I've worked with enough clients to realize that. So I've been really good at documenting everything as we work together so that people can refer back to their own words and to our words in previous events in our working relationship to see for themselves any incongruencies in their own understanding. Okay. Now, the thing that was different about this client is I noticed there was a major lack of wanting to do anything off of a phone call. And this was a red flag for me. So if you are working with someone or have worked with someone and you recognize that, it's really important to be careful, because when someone wants to talk so much, it might be that they are a persuasive person and they want to talk to try to change your mind, or they want to talk to listen. And I underestimated how much people can use your words against you and use what you give them against you. So, leading your clients is so important. Having restrictions on what you say, when you say it, where you say it, how you say it is super important. And this is something I learned greatly with this client, is the importance of the procedures I had set up. It reinforced my discipline, of using a certain messaging system for conversations, which is Slack. It reinforced recording calls. It reinforced sending emails, not only sending them, but saving screenshots of everything I just mentioned, right? My conversations in Slack, emails, contracts, all that. Because this particular person had gone into my email and deleted things, and I suspect it's them because I find it very strange that after I resigned, entire parts of our conversation were gone, and it was only the parts of the conversation that could have made the client look quote unquote bad if this had ever gone so far as court. Okay. And that was scary because it was an invasion of privacy. I had to change all of my passwords. You just don't think people are capable of that, especially if you are servant-hearted and you really love your work and you respect the people you work with. You don't expect anyone to do that, right? And so I learned the importance of kind of anticipating things to go wrong in a way where if someone ever did try to make your experience with them to look like something it wasn't, that you would have proof of what did actually occur so that you could protect yourself and your business and your assets if you ever had to go to court. So that's a really heavy one, right? But it's so true. And I have worked with many coaches, and I've coached coaches and consultants, and a lot of us still lack the procedures and the discipline to record everything, to have our backs in the case of that type of worst case scenario. And so it's not about having a negative mindset and saying, oh, well, if I expect that, it's going to happen. No, please understand me. It's just reality of doing business. Okay. So documenting everything, making sure you have evidence, not just for why you're doing things with the client, but evidence that prove your reasoning for suggesting something to the client, or suggesting that there was an incongruency or an incompatibility in the relationship, and making sure that you address this with the client. And in some cases, if the person is not healthy, you're not able to have a conversation for it to move forward. And that was another mistake I made. I over trusted this person. I gave them too much to work with. I communicated too much, over communicated, because their actions showed me continually that we were not a good fit, that we were not on the same page, and that I was taking more responsibility as an interim CEO versus the CEO actually taking responsibility. And once I was able to see for sure, because other employees would come to me with things, I opted to be a stand-in HR advocate. I really knew I was in hot water, because at that point, once you get in too deep, it's not just about you breaking a contract and feeling uncomfortable. It's about you possibly being involved with something that could get much worse down the line and can cost you your business. It can cost you everything you're working for. And so thankfully, I have teammates, I have business partners, and I love that, because working with other business partners helps keep me accountable to my own standards and my own boundaries, because I realize I have other people to protect too. So that's it. The 4 takeaways, let me just summarize them again. So number 1, if you are working with a new type of client, make sure to reassess your boundaries. And when you're in a new role with yourself, whether it's a new lifestyle, if you're a new mom, if your hours have changed for some reason, don't over expect things from yourself. Don't put yourself in a pinch. That will not help anyone. And you want to make sure that you make yourself available to people who are a good fit, who are compassionate, and who are understanding with your situation. So don't try to be an old version of yourself that doesn't fit with your current lifestyle, especially with this COVID thing. I know a lot of our lifestyles have changed. A lot of our mental health situations have changed, and we have to really prioritize ourselves in different ways. And that's okay. Just make sure you're honest with yourself, you're honest with your client, and that you reassess your boundaries, that they are realistic before working with the client. Then make sure you have a new contract that aligns with this with these new boundaries, that aligns with this new type of client and maybe even your new role in life. Again, you want to make sure you confront potential liabilities, anything that can go wrong. How would that be handled? Any behaviors that are not tolerable, deal breakers, expectations, and non-negotiables. You want to put that all in the contract and be very upfront. Takeaway number 3, ask these 2 questions. What have you tried prior to hiring me? What do you believe your role is to be in the current issues your business is experiencing? And make sure you ask for evidence regarding the prior attempts to resolve issues that you were hired to solve. Takeaway number 4, record everything as if you were preparing for court. That will protect you in the worst case scenario, and there's no harm in doing that. Thanks for listening to this episode. I would love to hear how it helped you. If you did find this helpful and you would like to use this for your own team or colleagues, or refer this to someone you know, I'm also making a worksheet for this episode, which will be available on my website. I will drop the link so you have access to it, and that way you can listen along. And even if someone can't listen to the podcast, they can take the notes, and they can customize the notes for themselves, and you can make it the content in this episode go really far with how you apply it to your life and business. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.